Friends, welcome to our homestead and welcome to our greenhouse. I have something very special to show to you today, and it's that plant right behind me. And I know once I give you all of the information about this plant, you are going to do everything in your power to grow it on your homestead. Let's talk about it. So what is it and why is it so beneficial? Well, it's called Moringa. I know you've heard of it. And it's also called malunggay if you're from the Philippines. But it's also called the miracle tree in a lot of different places around this entire world, and there's a reason for that. This moringa plant is classified as a superfood, but why? Well, that's because it contains 46 types of different antioxidants within its leaves and most of the rest of the plant. Additionally, it's an antiviral, it's anti-diabetic, and I'll talk about that more in a second, and it has antibiotic properties. Let's talk about specifics and why you need to grow this plant on your property for the health of your family. Contained within these leaves are 15 out of the 20 essential amino acids that we need to sustain life. No other plant comes close to that. It also has 13 essential minerals, of which selenium is the highest. Now, we need selenium in our bodies to help regulate the thyroid, and this is one of the best sources of it. I want to talk about protein for a minute. And since it contains so many essential amino acids, it actually is a complete plant protein. I don't believe any other plant protein is a complete plant protein. Soy does come close. Other legumes are maybe halfway there, but this one is complete. You can obtain 3 grams of that complete protein in 1 tablespoon of moringa powder. So it actually has 2 times the amount of protein that's contained within milk. Let's talk about some other crazy statistics about the nutrient content of this plant. It has 7 times more potassium than a banana. Like other leafy greens, it has a lot of calcium in it, but this particular one has 4 times more calcium than milk. My wife told me a lot about this plant, and this one blew me away. It has 7 times more vitamin C than citrus. So if you are struggling to grow citrus because of your climate, try this one. And we're going to talk about the challenges for growing it and where it can grow in a minute. But it has so much vitamin C in it. It's amazingly good for you, especially in the winter. This little plant has 25 times the iron of spinach. Spinach is famous for having a lot of iron. This has 25 times more. It has 36 times the amount of magnesium than an egg has, and it has 56 times more vitamin B2 than a banana. It's also extremely high in vitamin A. This plant is used by doctors around the world for its healing properties in Africa, Asia, South America, and now we can find it on the shelves of health food stores in the United States. But if you can grow this yourself, I highly recommend that you do. In terms of those antioxidants I was talking about earlier, this is chock full of flavonoids, ascorbic acid, and polyphenols. And all those are going to contribute a lot to liver health. And that's where most of the free radical metabolism happens in your body, is in the liver. This is an incredible liver healer. In terms of being an anti-diabetic, this helps reduce glucose levels in the blood, but it also helps reduce sugar levels and protein levels in the urine. So it really helps reduce insulin resistance. Now remember, I'm not a health professional, so you need to go out there and do your research yourself. And the nice thing about this plant too is it has 30% insoluble fiber. It is incredibly good for digestion. Let's talk about the plant or tree itself. The most common thing that's used is the leaves, and that is where most of the nutrients are contained. However, you can use the seeds, the seed pods, you can scrape the bark, you can use the roots, you can use pretty much the entire plant for its healing properties. This is used a ton in especially Filipino culture in cooking, and it is put into soups, it is eaten in a lot of other ways, and it's really actually delicious. Now in terms of growing these usually grow in hot, dry climates. They're incredibly drought resistant. They have a big tuber. They don't have a huge, extensive root system, but they have a big tuber. It stores a lot of water. So it can survive in Africa in very arid, dry climates with no problem at all. But here in Texas in Zone 8B, it does get cold in the wintertime, and that's why I have it here in the greenhouse. If you don't have a greenhouse, I highly recommend getting one to extend your growing season. I've done many videos on the benefits of having a greenhouse, but click on the videos at the top of the screen. That shows you how we built this greenhouse by ourselves. And then if you're interested, click on the link below the video and you can get 10% off these greenhouses from Grower Solution. We continually throughout the year cut off these branches, except for in the dead of winter, and harvest the leaves. Now what I do with these is I dry them, or I freeze dry them, or I freeze them if I don't have the time, and I will freeze dry them later and make a powder out of them. I have pruned this thing so many times this year, and it continues to push up against the top of the greenhouse. I need to cut it shorter. This winter, I will cut off all the branches and just leave this main body of the trunk right here. What I'll do with that is similar to what I do with my figs, is I will wrap it in burlap and I will mulch the ground around it, and that will keep this warm throughout the winter time. And then of course, since we are in the greenhouse, it will be a lot warmer in here. If you don't have a mature tree that's giving you seeds yet, you can propagate it from a branch. All we are going to do is cut off a pencil-sized branch. We're going to keep the end of that branch moist, kind of like propagating any other type of fruit tree cutting, and it will start to sprout roots. We'll pot it up. We've got ourselves another Moringa tree. So if you have any doubt this is not going to do well in your climate outside in the wintertime, you can quickly propagate some of these during the correct time of year, maybe in the fall, and then bring those into the house during the winter time. Bring them back out in the spring, and you should get a solid tree like this every single year. And remember, don't worry about getting it to a giant size and getting the seed pods out of it or anything like that. Most of those nutrients you can get from the leaves. In terms of propagation, my wife's aunt, who lives in Florida, brought us some fairly thick cuttings, about 2 feet long and maybe 2 inches in diameter a few years ago. We just stuck them in the ground. That's all we did. Nothing special, and they started growing leaves almost immediately. Unfortunately, at that early stage, I didn't understand I needed to insulate them, so they did die off, but we got some seeds, and now we're rocking and rolling. All right, friends, I want you to understand that this plant has a higher concentration of vitamins, minerals, nutrients than any other vegetable on the planet. It's very close to being the perfect source of nutrients in terms of its variety and concentration of those nutrients. So do whatever you can to grow this plant, no matter where you live. You can find seeds for these trees on Etsy. So I recommend you head over there, and there's actually a ton of them. They're probably coming from Florida or South Texas. We talk a lot about health on this homestead and how important it is for you to maintain your health out here, especially if things get bad in the world and we don't have access to doctors or modern medicine, which is way worse for you than something like this, obviously. So I will reiterate one more time, do whatever you can to get this tree planted on your property and producing these leaves. Put them in every meal that you can. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them for me in the comment section below. Now go check out this video right here, which is a video we did on all the medicinal herbs and plants that we produce here on our homestead. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.